Okay, here we go. This is gonna be a good tutorial. I'm just gonna show you what we're gonna make today, okay? Here we go. What the Oh, I get it. Cause I'm black. I got a yellow afro instead of the I got you, man. Whatever, man. Deal with it. Today we're gonna be making the Super Saiyan effect. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You get it? Super Saiyan? All right, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry for that. That was horrible. Okay, as you can see by the beginning of the video, I'm going to try and create a summoning spell type of animation or energy effect like they have in Dragon Ball Z or RPG games when you do summoning spells. So the first thing, I'm going to go over the basic concepts first. Then, you know, this is kind of an advanced tutorial-ish. It's pretty easy to follow, but getting everything to work correctly in your animation may take some time. But for the first part, we'll just go through the basics. So the first thing you want to do is create a shape. And for this purpose, I'm going to turn on the grid by hitting Command G, and I'm just going to draw a rectangle, I think. And for this example, I'll go ahead, I'm not going to animate this, I'm just going to show you how to get at least the circle part of the summon spell to work. So I'm going to change this color to blue, and I'll go ahead and put a stroke on it also. So let's turn the stroke on here, and holding shift down, I'll just select a darker blue so it has a stroke. And let me make that a little bigger. I'm actually going to make this a little see-through, so clicking the fill, I'm just going to change the opacity just so it's somewhat transparent. So once you have a basic shape, we need to make this go around in a circle. So I'm going to, let me name this first. Just go shape, and then we'll create another vector layer. And we'll just call this circle path, because this is the path that it's going to follow, the shape is going to follow. And we'll go ahead and click create shape, and we'll select circle. And with the grid on, you can see that the center point of origin is right there. So if I click and drag a circle, it starts doing this. But if you hold shift and option down, it expands directly from the center. And I just like doing that so I know exactly coordinate-wise where everything is. So we've got the circle. Let's go ahead and hit Q, and we'll just take off the fill-in stroke because we don't actually need to see the path. We're going to click on the shape and set its point of origin to the bottom of the shape. So we'll just put that there, and then we'll click follow path. And if you click anywhere on the circle, it's just going to snap to that path. But we want it to start at the very beginning, so we'll type in 0. And let's go to the first frame and hit return, or actually type in 0, just so it makes a keyframe. Oops. Actually, you're going to have to, I use my scroll wheel. I just turned it up a little bit, and then I'm turning it back down to 0. I just need a keyframe in frame 1. And then we'll just go to 72, and we'll type in 100. And you can put this last keyframe anywhere you want. This is just to dictate the speed. And so now that we have that going from 0 to 100, it's just going to go in a circle. So we'll right click on the second keyframe and hit cycle, and we'll go to frame 2 because we don't want this frame and the first frame to repeat itself. so it looks like one continuous motion. And let me turn the grid off for a second, Command G. So you can see when I play this, it slows down at the very end. That's because the interpolation is set to smooth automatically. So if we right click on the first keyframe and hit linear, it's gonna just do a continuous loop at the same speed, like that. So if you want it sped up, you can just change the keyframe position, and we'll put it like at 24, and it's spinning around like that. And that's exactly what we want. So this is the basic framework for the animation of the circle anyway. So with that created, we'll go ahead and create a group, and we need to put these both into this group. And I'll just call this shape group. And the reason that we're putting both of these into a group is we want them to be animated together. We want it to act as one object. So that's why it's being put into a folder. So once it's put into a folder, we'll go ahead and go to frame 0 and create a particle layer. And we'll just call this shapes. And you can name it whatever you want. So we'll drop the shape group into the shapes, and then we'll click on the particle layer and then reset some of the properties. So under the particle options, let's do preview 100 particles, and we'll leave the particle count at 100. And we want the lifetime of frames to be the same as the animation, which we set to 24. So we can go ahead and, go into the particle layer and set the lifetime of frames to 24, which it already is. And then we'll zero everything out. So the width, height, depth, velocity, velocity spread, everything is 0, just to start off with. Now you can see if I play the animation, they're just spinning in a circle. It's kind of hard to tell because they're evenly spaced. Let's do... Oh, now they're evenly spaced, but there is a whole bunch of them. Let's randomize the playback. Okay. Well, you can't really tell that they're spinning because I've set them at different... I haven't animated anything. So let's go back into the shape and... Let me slow this down a little bit. And then I'm also going to go to frame 1, and I'm going to just hit T and click the shape so it creates a keyframe. And I'll just go somewhere in here. I'm going to grab the top 2 points and then animate them so they're going down. And back up. And then we'll copy the first keyframe and paste it on 48. So it just goes back to its original position, and we'll loop this as well. Cycle to 2. So it's gonna go up and down now. Actually, let's go ahead and offset the last keyframes for that transformation. That way it's more random. So do that. And then let's make sure that we go to the shapes and then change the particle options to 48. That way it gets the complete cycle. So if I play it now, you can see they're moving up and down at different intervals. And if I render this out, now let me do this. Does this have an effect on it? Oh, there's a soft edge on this. Let's take that off for a second. Do plane. We'll make this more transparent, and let's change the stroke just a little thinner. I just want to see this real quick. So now they're more see-through. And actually, let's take the stroke off because I think that'll look better. So you can see there's different variations. The reason why some look darker than others is because they're being overlapped by other particles. but this is the actual color right here. So that looks kind of neat, but it doesn't look 3D. So what we have to do in order for this to make this look 3D is to select the path itself, and we don't want to transform this. We want to change its position in 3D space. So you need to click on the XY rotation, which is actually going to change its 3D position. And then we'll click in the X rotation and then just use our scroll wheel to turn it. So now it's actually turning in 3D space. So if I keep turning it, if I want my circle to be this wide, or just whatever you want, we'll just leave it like that just for an example. So when I click onto this now this looks like it's actually a 3D kind of column, like a summoning spell. And if I go back here, since it's in 3D space, if I move this particle layer with the transform tool, you'll see it actually is in 3D. See how that's changing its shape? So I want to put this at the bottom. I need to go into the circle path and transform it again. Oops. Just go and do the rotation, turn it like this. So now we have that setting right there. And there's your kind of 3D circular wall, I guess you could call it. So there's other things you can do also, since like if you want this to fade into the ground, we can go into the shape itself. And on frame 0, we'll go ahead and hit G and select the bottom 2 points. And this is a new tool in Anime Studio 11 Pro. Color points, we'll click on that. And then we'll click on the color fill up here and change the opacity to nothing, all the way down to the bottom of this column. So it doesn't look like it did anything, but if I render this out, you can see actually now that's faded. The bottoms are all faded away. But it's fading from here up to here, so if you want it to just be at the very bottom, you need to add a couple more points. So I'll just add them right here and here. So now, oops, if I render, yeah, they should just fade just at the very bottom a little bit. So that's kind of a way to make your wall fade into the ground. Now the other thing I wanted to talk about with the wall effect in particular is maybe you want the shapes to look like they're exploding outward. So in order to do that, you need to change the 3D space of the shape, not the circle path, but the shape. So if we go into our shape and then we do the same thing, we go to frame 0 and click on the XY rotation. We're going to click on the X rotation and we're going to rotate it forward, I believe. Let me check. So we'll rotate a little bit. I'm just clicking in here and using my mouse wheel to change the value. And if we click in here on the particle, you can see they're starting to bend outward. So I am rotating it in the right direction, so we can even make it more extreme. Rotate it there, and see now they're all kind of spreading outward. And that gives it, that's the same effect that I used for the cartoon at the beginning of the flame. And let me show you real quick how I did the flame effect so it looks a little bit more organic. So let's say we have this, just pretend these look more like spikes or like flames. I'm going to create a background layer just so you can see it better. So we'll do background, and I'll just create shape, and I'll just draw a rectangle. I'm going to put it behind our particles, and then I'm going to hit Q, select it. I'm going to put a gradient in that. And I'm just going to put fading from black to blue, like that. And let me move this a little bit. And I also want to make it radial, like that. Okay. Move that down here. So if I render this out, oh, the reason why that looked faded is because this fill is actually not solid, so we'll turn that up all the way. Let's render that. So there we have, this kind of looks like light beams, which that works too. But we can also add some other effects. So let's go ahead and double click on our shape and change this layer blending mode to add. And if you guys have seen my other tutorials, you know that using the add for the blend layer will make it, anything that's overlapping will become brighter and brighter. So you see white where it's overlapping a bunch, which adds, it's a pretty cool effect. And we can also, let me turn that background off for a second. I'm going to hit Q and select my shape, and I'll go ahead and make a soft edge. This just makes it more organic also by making it blurred. So I'm just going to blur it to about 5, and then we'll render that. And that looks a little better. Or not, it just depends on what you're going for. Thing to note too is if you have a gradient on a shape, it won't show up unless you hit Q and select it. I don't know why, but that's just a little quirk of Anime Studio. I'm gonna turn that off actually. I don't like the blur on this. So I'll select it and turn that back to plain, because I think that looks pretty cool. So that is the basic part for at least the wall effect. And some of you might be asking, well, how did you do the little particles that were flying up and disappearing? I can show you another animation that I made doing the same thing with actual Dragon Ball character. You see these little particles that are kind of zooming up and transforming. Then he has a glow also that is moving. Those two effects are pretty easy to replicate also. So all you have to do is, this is really kind of bothering me now. Let me turn off the gradient for a second. We'll just do plain and black. I just want to be able to see what I'm doing. So for the particle, we'll go ahead and create a new shape. And we'll just call this speck, because it's going to be a tiny speck of light that's appearing and disappearing. And I'm going to create a new shape, and autofill is turned on, and I'm going to make it blue also. I'll just draw a circle like that, and gotta change these curves real quick, hitting C and just curving those to a point. And I'm going to make this fairly small. And basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to animate this to about 12. I'm going to hit T and move it upwards. I'm also going to stretch it and make it a little thinner. Oh, and if you didn't know this, see how I grabbed this side and I'm transforming it? If you hold Option down, it will transform both sides. So just a quick tip. And I'm going to make it that thin, so it's going to go from down here up to there. Actually, let's make it a little higher. So really simple animation. Let's turn off the particle for a second. And what we want it to do is fade in and out. So go to frame 1. I'll hit Q and click on it. Turns checkered, and we'll turn the opacity down to 0. Then we'll go to frame 6. I'm gonna hit Command T. Oops, not Command T. See, because it's invisible, you have to make it appear like that. So I'm gonna hit Q. I'm just selecting it and turning it up. And then by frame 12, I'm gonna have it disappear again. So I'll just click on this and turn it all the way down again. So it'll, by frame 6, it's gonna appear, and then by 12, it's gonna disappear. And you can't tell Oh, there we go. I forgot Anime Studio does this. You can, if you don't have it selected, you can see it actually change. So it goes from nothing, it appears, and then just disappears. That's all it is. And I'm gonna make it loop. So select the last frame, cycle 2, and there we have a particle, or I mean a speck that's appearing and disappearing. And you guys already know what I'm gonna do, because particles are awesome in Anime Studio. So we will add particle, drag that in there, call it specks of light. All right, and we'll reset everything. We'll do 100 particles on this also, and lifetime is 12 because that's how long the animation is. And change the source and height. Change everything to 0. I just like zeroing everything out. And let's see. Okay, so they're all in the same spot. So we do need to... Ambulance just went by. Let's spread these out. So I'm spreading the source width and height. And I'm going to randomize playback so that makes it so they just animate at different intervals. And then we have this kind of sparkling scatter effect. So we can actually, let's turn on the wall effect, and we'll go ahead and select the specks of light particles also, and we can just grab the whole thing, move that over to where you need. You can go ahead and adjust the source width and height. So if you want, if there's a character standing right here, you can just change the width. If you really want to, now say you want these particles to move faster, you can actually turn the velocity on. So I'm just gonna, turn that up to a little tiny bit, and I'm gonna have the direction go upward. And let's see how that looks. I'm gonna keep that playing and then play with the velocity. So see, if I turn the velocity up and the direction is pointing upwards, it's gonna go faster and faster. Or just down to right here. So that's that effect. And the last effect is basically the same thing. It's, let me see. Let's find a picture real quick. I'm just gonna find a picture. Super Saiyan. Oh, PNG. Always good to search for PNGs if you want a clear background. Let's see if this guy has one. Yep. So let me pull that onto the desktop. So let's throw him in there. So we'll import an image. Throw him in there like that. And let's say we want to... Oh, here's another thing that you guys might not know about. So let's see. The specks of light. We have this... this is being generated from a circle. You can see right here, this is actually where it's being generated from. I think the origin's set funny, that's why it's so off. But let's go into that, and we'll go ahead. I'm gonna go to frame 0, and I'm just going to create another vector layer, and we'll just call this body shape. And I'm just gonna draw a square. I'm gonna have a stroke on just so I can see it real quick. Oops. Let's go to that. I like using squares. Oops. Undo. Let's try that again. Square. Just have the stroke on so I can see it. I'm just gonna do a basic rough outline of the character real quick. Nothing fancy. And it doesn't need to be, because what we're doing is we're creating a shape for the particles to be generated off of. Instead of just having that circle, give that a little bit. Actually, we can, oops, let's add some spikes too. I'm just hitting A and adding new points. So this is a new shape, and I'm going to put this underneath the specs, and with the particle layer selected, we'll go to particle options, and we're going to use base layer as source. So what this is doing is creating the particles, and they're going to be generated from this shape. Again, this is offset because I don't have the orientation set correctly. Let me see if I can fix that. Maybe it needs to be on him. I'm not sure which one I need to fix. So I just moved the origin point over him for every one of them. But you can see now, because this is at the bottom of this stack, it's generating those particles, those specks of light particles, directly from this shape I just created. So if I hit play, they're just kind of generating from that, which is really nice. And something you might not have known about. And I can use this body shape. I'm going to just duplicate it real quick. I'm going to drag it out of the particle layer because I'm going to use it for something else. Hit T. Let me move this over him. Oops. Move everything over him like that. And I'm going to hit Q, and I'm going to turn the fill on and the stroke off. And I'm going to turn the fill to be pretty transparent, like right about there. I'm going to double click it, make it layer blending mode to add. And when I render it, well, you can't see much of anything now. But if we do, let's do this. I'm going to curve these out a little bit. And now we're going to do a particle for this one. And we'll reset everything. We'll just do 20 particles and 20. We'll leave it at 24 right now. Set everything to 0, as usual. And let's offset again. I don't know why the origin points are so bizarre on Anime Studio now. It's kind of annoying. Okay, so we have that, but we want the particles to go up slightly to look like there's, you know, energy coming off. So we'll hit the particle options. We'll set the velocity to 0.05 and then turn the direction upward. See what that looks like. It's kind of turning too. We don't want that. So the spread needs to be set to 0. I missed that. Let's render that. That's too many particles. It's turning it completely white. So let's do 5. And turn the velocity up. So see how they're starting to move upwards like that. Let's see. Let's render that. Still way too many. Let's change this. And this might be because the color. Depending on the color, that affects how the layer blending mode works. So I'm going to click on the color. I'm going to do dark brown just so you can see that this is what I used for the that original. Man, that's way too bright still. Let's turn the opacity down to almost nothing and see how that looks. That's a little better. I think we can use that. I'm actually going to do a soft edge on this also. Let's do 8. And I'll render it. Because I just want it to look like a glow. I don't want it to look like actual shape. Let's do that. Oops. And so a lot of this has to do with fine-tuning. You may get the concepts, but you'll really have to play with the opacity and the settings to get it to the way you want it to look. Let's see. I want it to speed up a little more, so I'm going to do velocity and higher, change the particles a little bit, render that, see what that looks like. That might be too many. And basically just play with it. It's not going to break your machine or anything like that, so go ahead and play with the colors. Do all kinds of stuff, because that's really the only way that I've even figured out how to do anything, was just to mess with it. So you guys can do the same. I'm changing these all to brown just so you can see. Is that frame 0? Oops. Turn that to brown. Now if I render this out, this would look more like fire-ish. Not so much. Where's the spec? Oh, it didn't turn brown because I made a keyframe here. That's okay, let me undo. And if you want more particles, so like the wall particle, this one right here, let's say you can go in and add more. You can go and add the particle count, or you can do something like take the particle layer and just duplicate it, and then click on the sequencer and then offset it. That way it's rotating at a different pace, or a different starting point than the original. So then you have more. You render that out. And there it is. So, like I said, this is kind of advanced if you don't understand particles, but it's pretty easy to follow. And like I said, just mess with it. You'll be surprised of, the cool special effects that you can make. So if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. And that's it. Thanks.